This video is all about using strategic hashtags to help find the right audiences on your Reels and other Instagram content. Now, everything that I'm going to share today is based off of semi-recent data from, early 2025, as well as what Instagram creators, like the creator entity behind Instagram, is saying works right now. So I just want you to know that that's kind of where most of these suggestions are coming from. Now, hashtags, as you probably know, are really important because they help your content appear in search results on Instagram, as well as those like hashtag feeds. And they generally help new users discover your content based off of interest groups, right? So in that regard, hashtags can help you reach your target audience if you are choosing the correct hashtags for you and your niche and your brand, right? It's about creating kind of a meaningful experience and finding the right people, which is what we're all about in this challenge. So first of all, Yahoo, right? And hashtags can help build community and branding. So that's why branded hashtags also work. So I use like hashtag Colleen Oshab, hashtag Colleen Oshab writer, hashtag fight for the fairy tale, since that's my debut book / community that I'm building. And while they don't have a ton of followers or views or anything like that, that will help me build my brand in the future, as long as I'm including that kind of on all of my content. So those three are kind of like things that I always use, right? Fight for the fairy tale community, Colleen Oshab writer. Those are branded hashtags to me and my brand. The second thing, of course, are popular hashtags like hashtag writer and hashtag bookworm, right? These are hashtags that are super, super broad, right? So while they have a broad audience and maybe a lot of people might be searching writer or bookworm, right? Your content may get lost in the shuffle, right? So while they recommend utilizing popular hashtags or trending hashtags that are super popular, it may not always do you as well as you think it might, right? So you can include maybe one. So I might include hashtag writer, hashtag like fantasy writer, just because, that might be a popular hashtag. Or like hashtag fantasy book. It's probably better than fantasy writer. So that's going to be your popular hashtags. And then you have content specific hashtags. And these are going to be the most important for you because they're going to be based off of the thing you're posting at that time, right? So very important, if you're giving a tip, you do hashtag writer tip. Or if you're reviewing a book, you do hashtag book review, right? So these are going to be things you want to think about based off of each individual piece of content. So while I have the couple of hashtags that I always use, I'm going to sprinkle in the other, right? So that is kind of the first things to note. That is what hashtags are. Those are your different options for hashtags. But let's talk a little bit more about hashtag strategy. So right now, this is coming from Instagram creators that in 2025, they actually recommend 3 to 5 hashtags. And I know that is way different than what we've been told recently. It's like use all 30 hashtags, it'll help you find people. Apparently, right now, Instagram creators is advising you use 3 to 5 hashtags. No less, maybe a little bit more, but right there, right? So I might do to limit hashtag Colleen Oshab writer, hashtag fight for the fairy tale / hashtag fight for the fairy tale community, and then 2 or 3, of content relevant, hashtag book review or hashtag writing tip, right? Or hashtag writer meme, right? So that was new to me when I saw that from Instagram creators. So they suggested not only that number, but you also, like I said before, want to use relevant hashtags to your content. So that makes sense. They do recommend checking the hashtags that other fans are using and following, right? So if other writers use certain hashtags or readers are using certain hashtags, that's something to pay attention to, right? If a lot of the people, the writers that you follow on Instagram are using hashtag writers room, that's something that you might get involved in as well. So you want to pay attention to what hashtags other people are using. They recommend mixing, well-known and niche hashtags. So in a regard that might be, on the far end of the spectrum, hashtag book, right? But then as I go this way, I'm going to get more and more niche. So hashtag fantasy book, hashtag medieval fantasy book, or hashtag romantic fantasy book, right? That would be moving from extremely well known to more niche, but still not too limiting, right? You don't want your hashtag to be too long because likely people aren't searching that big phrase, so you do want to be careful there. And then they also recommend those specific branded hashtags so your fans can find your content. So hashtag Colleen Oshab or hashtag Colleen Oshab writer is going to help people who are specifically looking for me and my content find my content, even though I feel like they'd be able to find my account anyway. But hey, that's what Instagram recommended, right? Now, the last thing is kind of taking a look and seeing what the hashtags you are choosing to use are doing. And I acknowledge, I'm not recommending anything here. I'm acknowledging that this is a tedious practice, right? And to do this research, we have to be like full-time content creators. So just take a glance at some of the ones you use most often, right? I'm going to kind of search something here. So if I search Colleen Oshab writer, and then I go to tags, you can see there's only one option for hashtags and it has fewer than 100 posts, right? Because if I click on that, it's going to literally be all of my content, things that I've done, right? But if I do, let's see, what should I do? Hashtag fantasy writer. So this is less niche, right? If I check out that, there are so many more optionable hashtags, right? We have fantasy writer, fantasy writers, fantasy writers of Instagram, right? And as you go down that list, you can see fantasy writer has over 200K posts, whereas fantasy writers of Instagram has 30K posts. So that means both of those are getting used. But if you do fantasy writers of Instagram, you might have a better chance of showing up on that page, right? Because there's less to compete with. However, I like fantasy writer too, because likely more people are looking at that because there's more content in there, right? So it is this balance of finding which things are going to work for you. I have had people recommend to me using some type of social media listening tool that actually lists out like today, this hashtag was used X many times, right? And that can be very, very valuable. But again, we want to do this quickly, simply, and easily, right? So what I would say, pick two hashtags that you're going to use all the time, one for yourself and one for the community you kind of want to build, even though you might not have like a specific community brand you're trying to build like I do, because my first book's a nonfiction fantasy, so it's a little bit different. But maybe you're going to write a certain type of fantasy, right? So you're going to be wanting to say, romantic fantasy writer or something like that, right? So you're going to pick one or two hashtags that you're going to kind of use all the time. And then what I would say is each post do about 3 that match your content, right? So the book review, writers supporting writers, there's so many. But pay attention as you watch other people's content, see things that are doing well, check out what hashtags they're using. It's going to be kind of part of that research thing as we're saving videos to recreate. Also check out if they're using hashtags. Some people don't use hashtags at all and they do well, right? So it's just about trying to find some of the things that work best for you. I think on the insight data they had before, let me make sure I'm not lying, that they had your options for hashtags, but I'm not seeing it straight off the bat because Instagram moves things all the time, but sometimes they give you information on your hashtags and things like that. I'm not seeing it at this moment. So if someone knows where they move that, they did show like hashtags and which ones were being popular. Now, I know I use an external app called Preview to schedule some of my posts, and that app does give me, as part of the paid that I paid for it, is giving me some analytics data on my hashtags. So you can get that kind of in the outside, but I don't want you to think about this too much. Again, if Instagram says 3 to 5 hashtags, that's what we're going to do. And then from there, you'll kind of adapt with your content, right? So try that out, see if it helps, right? And genuinely, you just need to know kind of why and have a little strategy. And this is a super simple strategy. Don't have to think about it too much, but it should help you start to kind of find your audience. All right, guys. I think this is the last video of the challenge prep. So hopefully you've enjoyed these, kind of followed along, and I hope you're ready to get going. See you in the challenge.